Hi there and welcome to Monkey Channel, where I review anything that comes to my head, because I can. So I've been buried under a lot of work lately, and I've been thinking, what video content can I release in the meantime so you don't get bored? I've had many ideas, but the one I've decided to act on first is short weekly recaps of an ongoing series. Problem is, I don't follow that many weekly series. I suppose I could pick a series to binge watch on Netflix, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. Maybe somewhere down the line. Anyway, two come to mind. The first is Ruby, which I've already talked about on the podcast, and not always favourably. The other is a wrestling show I've mentioned once or twice on the podcast, Lucha Underground. And honestly, I think I'd have more fun talking about Lucha Underground each week rather than a show I have a love-hate relationship with. But of course, there is the whole problem that currently Lucha Underground is halfway through Season 3, and I've never talked about wrestling shows on this channel before. Hence why I've created this introduction video, to explain what Lucha Underground is, why I like it, and to bring you up to speed before this week's episode, which is Aztec Warfare. Ooh, I'm so excited! Okay, time for the explanation. Okay, starting with the basics appeal of the show first. Before anyone types in, you know wrestling is fake, right? That's kind of the point. See, wrestling, or at the very least wrestling shows, are basically sports dramas performed live. The fights are a resolution to ongoing feuds that have been happening backstage, it's just that they're performed in front of a studio audience. So why do I follow Lucha Underground as opposed to the WWE? Well, I'll be honest, Lucha Underground is my first wrestling show, but given what I know about the WWE after doing some research, Lucha Underground just appeals more to me. Firstly, the shows are an hour long, whereas an average WWE show can be anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, and I do not have the time for that. Second, the costume design and acrobatic nature of Lucha Libre just appeals to me more. Plus, the executive producer is Robert Rodriguez, which doesn't hurt. It also doesn't hurt that because wrestling is fake and Lucha Underground is a more story-focused show, we have a wide variety of wrestlers, including many wrestlers descended from Aztec tribes, a biker, a cowboy, a war veteran, a humanoid dragon, ninjas, undercover cops, dark sorceresses, hulking zombies, and a man from space. But on to the actual premise of the show. Lucha Underground is an underground wrestling ring run by Dario Cueto. Dario Cueto is a businessman who has two simple pleasures. First, Aztec mythology. He loves it so much, in fact, that he infuses it into every part of the sport. Instead of a stadium, it's a temple. Instead of an audience, it's believers, etc, etc. Okay, in fairness, it's not just because it's a hobby for him. It might also be because he's working with a shady organization that may also be trying to resurrect an Aztec god. Possibly. The other thing he loves is pain. So not only does he like setting up violent matches, but he loves putting people into incredibly painful situations. He's the kind of man who would offer you a contract and then hide details in the fine print, and then you find out he had written another catch on the contract in invisible ink. And because of this, Lucha Underground has an open door policy, which means that as long as you can put on a good show and have violent fights, he doesn't care who gets involved. So, you have people from all walks of life entering the arena, including some people who are a bit worried about him tapping into Aztec powers he does not understand. And if you're wondering just how bad it can be, meet the current champion of Lucha Underground, who is also Dario Cueto's brother, Matanza Cueto. Ever since he arrived last season, Matanza has been undefeated. During their childhood, his parents decided to conduct a ritual which had him possessed by an Aztec god. He basically lumbers around the match like a confused baby that doesn't quite know what's going on, and that's kind of why I like him, but he is also OP as hell. Like I said, the guy has been undefeated. Every single challenger that's come his way has lost every single match. The guy is an unstoppable powerhouse who has taken down the best of Lucha Underground. And at this point, Dario is so cocky that as of Season 3, he came up with Dario's Dial of Doom, a roulette which can decide who gets to have a title shot against him. And even with that boost, no one has won. So Matanza is still the champion, but if there's any time to defeat him, it's now in Aztec Warfare. Aztec Warfare is a special event that happens mid-season, which can best be described as a 20-man brawl. New fighters are added in every single minute, and eventually, once the chaotic mess has passed, one person will stand and they will be crowned the champion. It's how Matanza won the title last year. The only other way to get a title shot, aside from Dario's Dial of Doom, is by winning a separate belt called the Gift of the Gods. A belt made up of 6 medallions, and if you collect all 6 of them and win the belt, you can challenge Matanza for the title at any time. The current holder of the Gift of the Gods belt is Johnny Mundo, who is a massive heel. See, Johnny Mundo won that belt against Sexy Star, who is possibly the closest to being the female lead in this series. And when he got the belt, he was almost about to cry, because this is all he ever wanted. He wanted to prove in front of the believers that he was the best, and now he's one step away from proving that he is the champion. The fact that he only won that fight by smuggling in a knuckle duster, plus having 2 of his tag team partners interfere with the match constantly, and having said partners knock out not 1 but 2 referees over the course of the match, and the fact that the only reason he got that match at all was because he bribed Dario with a big suitcase of cash, has been completely omitted from his mind. So with the belt in the hands of a lying, cheating, but admittedly incredibly athletic coward, it's very likely that this is going to be the best chance to dethrone him. Okay, so I've established 2 of the main villains, but who are the protagonists? Well, for the longest time, I would have instantly answered with Prince Puma. Prince Puma has been in Lucha Underground from day 1, and he is considered the fan favourite. In fact, he was the first Lucha Underground champion. However, as of last episode, he might be dead. See, he's been on a losing streak for a while, and at the guidance of one of the commentators, a former wrestler known as Vampiro, and by the way, one of the reasons I love Lucha Underground is because they get the freaking commentators involved in the storylines. But yeah, at the advice of Vampiro, he decides to reignite a feud he had with one of his oldest enemies, Mil Muertes. Also known as the Man of 1,000 Deaths, he is a massive hulking zombie that serves as the juggernaut for the dark sorceress Katrina. And the feud started because not only did Mil Muertes steal the championship from Puma, he also killed his mentor, a luchador named Conan. And although Prince Puma did win against Mil Muertes this season, he decides to take it one step further and challenge him to the same match that killed his mentor, Grave Consequences. And the other guy won. In any other circumstances, I would write this off as part of a story arc because we see Vampiro grinning like a maniac, and I should mention that Vampiro fancies himself as an Emperor Palpatine and has been trying to recruit Puma as an apprentice. So I'm thinking, okay, he's probably going to revive Prince Puma as some kind of dark monstrosity. Then my friend and Danger Zone colleague MVL, who is a lot more experienced in wrestling than I am, pointed out that there is a greater enemy, one that is constantly threatening Lucha Underground. High-paying contracts from the WWE. So this may in fact be Prince Puma's actual death and an excuse to write him out the show. Meaning that at this stage, the only protagonists, as in 100% good people trying to stop Dario that I can think of, are El Dragon Azteca Jr. and Rey Mysterio. And the problem is, Rey Mysterio is more considered a mentor character since he is an incredibly famous wrestler, but the last match he was in was with Chavo Guerrero, and the reason they were having that is because Chavo beat El Dragon Azteca Jr. to a pulp backstage. The only other former champion who could have taken that role is Phoenix, but he took part in a match with his former tag team mates Aerostar and Drago in order to earn the very advantageous number 20 slot in Aztec Warfare, and he lost to Drago. So, unless Matanza destroys everybody in this match, we are going to have a new Lucha Underground champion. This is why I'm very excited about Aztec Warfare. So who are the potential champions? There are only 5 other wrestlers confirmed for the slots, which they sorted out in a 5-on-5 duel. Marty the Moth, a man-child who continuously defined what it means to be fucking creepy. His sister Mariposa, who... she exists. The Mac, who I genuinely like, partially because of his style and also because he's one of the few straight-up decent guys in this series. Evilise, who always puts on a good show, although admittedly in said match she had an ankle injury, so not sure what's going to happen there. And her new boyfriend Jeremiah Crane, who has only fought in 2 matches so far. Aside from that, we have no idea who will show up in Aztec Warfare. Maybe it'll be familiar faces, maybe it will be a chance for new wrestlers to show up. After all, it was Matanza's introduction. Either way, if it's anything like last year, which was my introduction for the record, it is gonna be so much fun. Obviously, I'm only scratching the surface as far as narrative goes, but we'd be here all day if I explained the context behind every single feud. So from here on out, I'm going to explain the context of each feud as it arises. But before we finish this video, I'll take a moment to mention some of my personal favourite wrestlers in Lucha Underground. One of them being Prince Puma if he is able to fight off both death and the temptations of the WWE. Son of Havoc, the open road biker with a badass beard who often seems to be the underdog in most of the matches he's in. Masquerita Sagrada, a light-footed midget who's incredibly fun to watch. Killshot is a former soldier, and his long gangly body makes for an interesting fighting style. Katrina, who admittedly is not actually a wrestler, but she's a sorceress with dark powers who affects the plot in great ways, so yeah, can't go wrong with that. Aerostar, because Spaceman. The Mac and Rey Mysterio, for reasons I've already mentioned. And Black Lotus, Dario's bodyguard, who is also trained in martial arts, and for the love of God, Lucha Underground, please bring her back. She was only in 1 match against El Dragon Azteca Jr., and that just made me want to see more. So yeah, I hope I've encouraged you to watch Lucha Underground, which is premiering on the El Rey network, and I hope you'll join me from week to week as we follow this series. And now I will see you at Aztec Warfare. I've been the Jonin Monkey, and until next time, cheerio.